Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is on the leadership team tools and reports in BNI Connect. With the leadership team transition that's happening on October 1st here in BNI for many, many regions and chapters around the world, this is going to be a review of a lot of the things that leadership teams commonly have to do in BNI Connect, from entering certain reports to being able to get the data back out of BNI Connect to being able to communicate with your chapter. It's both either a review session for those of you that may have done this in a local on-site training, could teach you a few new things as well, or it could just supplement some existing regional trainings. A couple of housekeeping things to keep in mind as we're going through this. This call is being recorded. It is a live webinar, so that means that I would ask that you please do ask questions as we're going through today's content. If you're not sure about something, if you'd like more information on something, please do feel free to ask those questions. We're scheduled for approximately a half-hour worth of content. I do want to be very aware of everybody's time and taking time out of your busy schedules. And if people do need to leave right at the bottom of the hour, try to get in everything we can before then. That being said, I would be happy to stay on these calls until every single question is answered, whether that takes 45 minutes, whether that takes an hour, whether it takes 2 hours. This is what I do all day as I support BNI Connect, and I welcome the opportunity for you to ask any question you want to ask about BNI Connect and make sure that we have all our facts straight. Another thing to keep in mind is that because this isn't a specific training, we're not specifically training presidents today, we're not specifically training vice presidents or membership coordinators or membership committees or director consultants or secretary treasurers. What I'm going to be doing is going through all of the various positions. So there may be some things that might not be applicable to your particular position, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. There's a couple of reasons for that. The first of which is that different regions do things differently. For example, in many, many regions, the vice president is the one that records the POMS data after a chapter meeting. In some regions, they've delegated that to somebody else in the chapter to help out the vice president with that position. So in some regions, if the vice president is missing for a week, the president can jump in and do a POMS report for the week, for example. So all of the things that I'm going to show you today, most leadership teams should have access to all of the functions so that you can also help in backing up the other people in your chapter. That being said, because different areas have slightly different processes and responsibilities, for anything that I say today, please do check with your chapter director consultant or your executive director before or if you're seeing something that might be out of line with something that you currently do in your area. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Again, this is going to be somewhat of a generic presentation as opposed to, as a president, here's exactly what you do every week. Hopefully that helps. All right, couple more things. Couple of things that we're going to be covering today: how to enter and manage visitors, how to email your chapter, how to enter a POMS report, how to enter the speaker rotation, how to assign mentor and mentee pairs, how to enter an application, how to review pending applications, and we're going to take a brief look at a lot of the reports in the system. So again, as you ask questions, we'll also be able to cover more things, but primarily these are the things that I want to get across today. All right, everybody ready to go? All right, so let's take a look at BNI Connect. So this is logged into BNI Connect. This is the home screen. Now, this is where most of the daily activities of the members are going to happen. So when they go on a weekly basis, they're going to be submitting their slips through here. For those chapters that are using the slips, I congratulate you. For any vice presidents or the people that enter the POMS reports on the call, I would highly recommend that you encourage your chapter to use the online slips. Not only does it give them a greater degree of reporting, but it will make your jobs a lot easier. So I'm not going to go too in-depth about the slips right away. Just a couple of things. To submit a slip, it's very easy. Log into BNI Connect, and if you have a referral for somebody, click on Submit a Referral Slip. So you select somebody from your chapter, you fill out the details, and you click Submit. Now, from a leadership team perspective, this is great because this information, aside from passing that referral right away and giving the receiving member all the details, all of that slip information is captured in the POMS report for the week. So it's that much less data entry that you'll have to do. But to look at some of the functions that we're going to have to do, we're going to have to go beyond the home screen. Now, a lot of people come to me and they say, well, I don't know where to find anything in BNI Connect. So here's a couple of little hints for you. Up at the top, you'll see some menus. You see Network, Operations, Reports, Tools, and Admin. And depending on your level, you'll see some or all of those. At the very least, almost everybody here should be able to see Network, Operations, and Reports. Now, network is all of the social media functions. So if you want to participate in the group discussions, or you want to look at your connections, or you want to connect with somebody else, or you'd like to give a testimonial, that's the place to go for all the networking functions. Operations is where we're going to go to do all the data input. If we want to use functions in BNI Connect, we want to do stuff in BNI Connect, we're going to go to Operations. Reports is all of the output. So if we want to get information back out of BNI Connect, we're going to go to Reports. So most of the functions that you're going to be doing as a leadership team member are going to happen under the Operations menu. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to go to Operations, and we're going to go to the chapter level Operations. Now, I am currently a member of a chapter. I'm also a president of a chapter. Because of that, I am using our testing system, which I have to admit is a little bit slower than the live system. So bear with me here for a second. We do have a couple of questions, by the way. We have one question from Benson. Benson says, is the presentation going to be available? Yes, this is being recorded. It will be made available both on the support site and on YouTube, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. And I'll show you those links when we get to it in a little bit. Question from Barbara about mentors and visitors, and I'm going to answer those right now. So the first thing you'll see here is the different menu items on the left, and then under the menu items, there's the different functions underneath. So you'll see there's the different categories of things that we're going to do. So managing visitors is all to do with the visitor process. Meeting management has to do with the POMS, recording the POMS data, and also the speaker rotation. Managing memberships has to do with entering applications if you have access to do that, as well as going in to people's profiles if you have access to do that. There is a goals system. We have a whole separate webinar for that, so I'm not going to go too deep into that, but you do have the ability to, as a leadership team, establish and track goals. The mentoring program is where you can view the mentor-mentee relationships and or assign mentors and mentees. We do have the ability to do some things with email as well. And the news function is a special function that I'm not going to touch upon today too much. So let's go through some of the different things we're going to be doing as a leadership team. So the first of which is managing visitors. So visitors, when they come to your chapter, what we want to be able to do is to track visitor information. And there's a couple of great reasons for doing this. There's two different parts of visitors. You can register a visitor before they come to the meeting, and then you can also track their information after they come to the meeting. Ideally, you want to start that process before they even come to the meeting. And to do that, we would go to register a prospective visitor. Registering a prospective visitor does a couple of things. The first of which is it sends them a notification. It sends them a confirmation that they are going to be coming to visit your chapter. So when I click on this, I just need to fill out some information. I can fill out their particular profession, their specialty, what date they are going to be coming to the chapter meeting. You'll notice that only future dates are enabled. So let's say they're going to be coming to the meeting tomorrow. Their name, so this is John Smith. If you have all the rest of this information, please fill that out as well. Phone number is mandatory, and the email address is also mandatory. So I'm going to put my own email address in here. And when I'm done with this information, I click Submit. So now this will send an email to that visitor saying you are now registered for this chapter meeting. It'll also send a reminder 2 days before the meeting. And it will also let the whole leadership team know that somebody is coming to visit that chapter. So, for example, I just got this notification saying, "Hi, John, you are confirmed to visit the BNI Wakefield chapter." Lets them know what date they're confirmed for, what time. Lets them know to be at the meeting for 90 minutes. It gives them the address of the meeting and tells them to bring plenty of business cards. So anybody that's coming to visit the chapter meeting, I do recommend registering as a prospective visitor. Melanie asks, should a sub be considered a visitor? And that's a good question. I would definitely check with your director consultant or executive director on that. From a prospective visitor standpoint, I would say it is okay to enter them as a prospective visitor. The prospective visitors do not go into the PALMS report for credit yet. So hopefully that answers your question, Melanie. All right, so now that's before the meeting. What happens with visitor hosts after the meeting? Well, what you want to make sure that you're doing is we're marking down the visitors that attended that meeting. And the way to do that then is to go to Manage Registered Visitors. And what this will do is you can do a search or leave it blank. Here you can see all of the visitors that were registered to attend a meeting. Now we have a couple of different possibilities here. So for people that actually attended the meeting, we can go in and mark them as attended. Let's say that John Smith said, you know what, I wasn't able to make it on the 25th. I need to reschedule for a different day. Well, we can go in and actually change the day. So I can go in, edit the record, and change the date of the visit. And maybe he wants to come on October 2nd instead. That will restart the email process with them, and now they're registered for the meeting on October 2nd. Let's say that the visitor didn't show up to the meeting and they don't plan on showing up. Well, you can also remove them from this registered visitors database. For example, Stani here never showed up. Said she's not going to be showing up. I'm going to delete her from our prospective visitor database. Now for the ones that did show up, let's say that I showed up to the meeting as a guest. What we want to do now is record that attendance. And for that, since all the information is filled out, it makes the visitor host's job just a little bit easier. All I need to do is click the box that says Visitor Attended. Now, to answer your question, Melanie, there might be times when we don't want this to go into the PALMS report. And for that, we can choose to uncheck the PALMS credit. We can then verify the rest of this information, who invited this person. That's the person that will get the credit in the PALMS report. We can verify the visit date. That is which PALMS report it's going to go into. And whether or not we want to send a welcome email, thank you for visiting email to this member. Once I click Submit, this visitor will be removed from the prospective visitor database and into the visitor database. Now, if there's somebody that didn't pre-register for a meeting, you can then add them in by clicking Add Visitor. And again, you have the option to add them to PALMS and all of the rest of the information as well. Now, clicking on that from here is the same as clicking on the Add Visitor function here. Once they have visited and they become visitors, you can manage your visitor database by clicking on Manage Visitor. Let's take a look at the next item. The next item is going to be for Let's see, John has a question quick. Can any member of the chapter add a visitor or only officers? That is going to be highly dependent on the permissions in your particular region. When it comes to most members, what they're going to see, just a plain old regular member with no other roles, the only thing they'll see is the register a prospective visitor function. Okay, Ariel says, what does PALMS stand for? So PALMS is the attendance report, the attendance and statistic report. PALMS actually stands for present, absent, late medical substitute, or the different abbreviations for their status of attendance. All right, so the next thing on the option here is the meeting management. Meeting management allows us to do, this is really where mostly the vice presidents or the chapter, the membership coordinators for the chapter, if you're in the UK, where you're going to spend a lot of time after each week's meeting. One of your responsibilities is usually to enter the PALMS report. And this is where we would enter the PALMS report. Now you can view any past individual PALMS reports here, or you can go to enter a PALMS report. So let's say our meeting just commenced and I need to enter the PALMS report for this week. So here, the first thing I'll see is any visitors. So as people add visitors, you will see them in the list here. You can see who the visitor was, who invited them, and who actually did the data entry. The date of visit will be which PALMS report they will go into. As the person entering the PALMS, you have the ability to either approve or reject this particular entry into the PALMS. One deciding factor there, something to keep in mind, is that the number, your conversion ratio for traffic lights is dependent on how many visitors were in your PALMS report. It also affects member traffic lights if you're using that in your region, because that is an indication in member traffic lights as well. So just something to keep in mind. Now when it comes to the visitors, you can also check to see if they were already entered by clicking on the PALMS link. And that will show you a copy of that week's PALMS reports if you need to verify if that person was already entered. So here I can see that Elizabeth Berman was not already credited for it. So I probably want to go ahead and click yes to enter this person into the PALMS. So once I've made a decision on all the visitors, I'll then get the opportunity to enter the actual meeting. So let's say that we're going to fast forward and pretend that tomorrow happened already, and I can go ahead and click on tomorrow's date, and I'm going to enter the PALMS report for this. This is basically a big spreadsheet. So what you would do is all of the online slips that people already passed will be entered into the PALMS, and I had entered a couple of slips already. You can see that I entered a one-to-one. There's a one-to-one for Ian Barlow that had a one-to-one with myself. There's also a referral given here by me and a referral received by Bill Flatley. Now for those that were entered, you can also click on the Slips Audit Report, and that will show you all of the activity for that week that had already been entered online. For all the paper slips, you now have to sort those into piles and then fill out the appropriate information. So take attendance. So if Ian Barlow was late this week, I would put an L next to his name. If Janet Birtwell had a substitute, I would put an S next to her name. If Greg Bressler is on medical leave, and let's say Peter DiStefano was absent. I could then go through all the various slips. So the referral slips, for example, if Scott had a referral for Christine, that would be a given for Scott and a received for Christine. Now RGI, RGO, RRI, and RRO. RG is referral given. I is inside and O is outside. The difference between the two is An inside referral is a referral that happens between two members of the same chapter. In other words, I'm in this chapter with Scott Benjamin. If I refer myself to Scott Benjamin to utilize his services personally, that would be an inside referral. An outside referral would be I refer somebody that I know, somebody outside of the chapter, to Scott Benjamin. So there's always two sides to a referral, the person that received it and the person that gave it. V is for visitors. So if the visitors were not entered into the system, so the visitors that are entered automatically get put into the POMS report. If you're not recording your visitors through BNI Connect, you can put them in manually here. Again, the one-to-ones, there's going to be two sides of each one-to-one. Thank you for closed business. And finally, the CEUs. You can put any remarks about the meeting if you would like to. It was a great meeting. And when you're done, click Submit POMS. There's a couple of other options here as well. Mark as holiday. What this will do is if you happen to have a week where you don't meet, usually that's because of, for example here, my chapter meets on Thursdays and we probably aren't going to meet on Thanksgiving. So we would mark that meeting as a holiday. That way it's not counted against statistics. And it will also take any of the online slips and push them to the next available meeting. Save as draft is if you get interrupted and you can't enter all the data, you need to come back to it later. You can click Save as draft. If you completely mess it up and you want to just throw it away, you can click Discard POMS. When the report comes back, it will have all the online slips in it automatically. I'm all set, so I'm going to click Submit POMS. I can review the data. If I need to go back and make any changes, I can also click the Unlock POMS report, which would bring me back to the editing screen. All right, we have a couple of questions about POMS here. When will I get permissions? You'll get permissions after the 1st, so pretty much at midnight on the 1st of October. When you are then assigned as the vice president, you will have permissions to do that. Sid says, do many of the chapter's VPs bring their laptops? I don't think most of them bring the laptops and enter it there because it does take a little bit of time to do it, and it would be a little distracting at the meeting. Most people do that afterwards. Lori says, if a visitor is registered before the meeting, will it flow to the POMS report, or do we still need to mark the visitor on the POMS? So the pre-registered visitors, you do need to go in and mark them as attended. Once you mark them as attended, it will flow into the POMS. Ariel says, if I give a referral to someone in a different chapter, would that be an outside referral? Ariel, that depends on whether or not you are referring yourself or you're referring somebody else. So if you're doing yourself as a referral to that other person, that's still a person-to-person and inside referral. When it comes to cross-chapter, the only way to really effectively enter that is through the online slips. And basically, the referral will be split. You'll have the referral given in your POMS report and the referral received in the other chapter's POMS report. Chris says, in the POMS, I noticed a very large amount, almost 300,000, coming from other sources outside the chapter for the week. Is there any way to validate this? Because the slips are anonymous, there's no real easy way to validate a thank you for closed business besides asking. However, it should note which chapter it came from, so you could have a talk with the other chapter leadership team to find out the details, and they can ask the people in that chapter about it. Tamara says, if the entire chapter starts using the BNI Connect, there are no slips, how can we do a weekly raffle? So you can do the weekly raffle by either having them print out their slips report and actually input those paper slips. They could input a regular paper slip if they wanted to and put an X through it. Or you can use that if I go to View POMS and I choose a date, I choose Completed to go into this POMS report and click on the Slips Audit Report. What I would do is then sort this by slip type. You can print this out and choose from one of the referrals that were passed that week. Some people, what they do is they count the number of referrals. They say, okay, pick a number between 1 and 17, and then they choose that number on the list. So that would be one way to do it without the extra paper. All right, so I will come back to those questions, but I do want to move on because we are already getting towards the bottom of the hour. All right, speakers. Under meeting management, if you are a secretary-treasurer, you do want to make sure that you're entering your speakers in as well. So I click on View, Edit Speakers. I can choose a date that I can view the speakers from, and you can see that we have some speakers assigned already. So if I would like to assign the next set of speakers, I would then click on Assign Speaker, choose the date that they'll be speaking, who the speaker is, and what their topic is. Now you will notice that there are people in the list that aren't your chapter members, and that would be your director consultants and your executive directors from your region. Now once the speaker is assigned, a couple of cool things happen. They do get 2 reminders about their upcoming speaking engagement. They'll get a reminder 6 days before the meeting, and they'll also get a reminder 3 days before the meeting, letting them know that they are speaking that week and reminding them to bring a door prize. Now you can, if you need to replace somebody, you could just delete them and then add a new person in for that day. All right, so the next thing I want to show you, I'm going to skip down a couple here to the create email. One of the things that we often have to do as leadership teams is to send out communications to our chapters. And there's a really easy way to do that through BNI Connect, at least to make sure that you're getting it to all of the right people. This is done through the create email function. Before BNI Connect, if I wanted to send an email out to my chapter, I either had to keep my own address list or I'd have to go back to the last email and kind of hit reply all and hope that it went to everybody. The email my chapter will give me a current list of all of the chapter members. Now in the test system they're all scrambled here, but this would normally have all of my current members' email addresses. I could then highlight them, copy them, start up my own email program, whether that's Gmail or I happen to use Outlook. I recommend putting them all into the BCC line. I can then type out my email and send an email to my entire chapter knowing that I got everybody. While we're on the subject of creating email, another really useful tool here is to be able to email a visitor invitation where you can invite somebody to come and visit your chapter. All you need to do is to type in the person's name. So let's say John Smith, their company name, their email address, and you can type a personal message. It'll then insert these details into an email template and send that out. Now I sent that to myself, so I will show you what that looks like, and here's what the invitation looks like. It has a nice BNI graphic in it, has my personal message, all of the details about my chapter, and a little bit of information about BNI. The mentoring program is also another great function here in BNI Connect. If you'd like to assign mentors and mentees, the best way to do that is to go into the mentoring program and click on Assign Mentor Mentee. What you do is you choose the start date. So when is that mentor-mentee relationship going to start? This will also indicate when they will get their first email. The mentor program is really a set of between 5 and 8 emails, depending on your region, that walk them through helpful tips on being a new member. And the idea is that the mentor and the mentee meet once a week and they talk about these various things. So you just choose who the mentor is, who the mentee is, and you click Submit. They will start getting emails as of tomorrow, letting them know what to talk about. If you'd like to see who the current mentors and mentees, you can also view the mentors and mentees. And you can see we have the one here for BNI Wakefield. The mentor is Elizabeth Berman and the mentee is Janet Birtwell. I can either cancel that relationship. I could also change the mentor if I needed to. Sid says, Sid, to answer your question, the email goes to their email as that's part of their profile, so it doesn't stay in BNI Connect. It actually goes to their real email address. Benson says, who can assign mentors? Usually the mentor coordinator, but anybody on the leadership team should also have access to do that function. Ariel says, how long is the mentor program? It depends on your region. The default is that it is 8 weeks, but some regions have a mentor program that could be as short as 4 or 5, and some have one that can last as long as 10 to 12 weeks. All right, so let me move on. I guess I think I grossly underestimated the time. We're at the bottom of the hour. There are still probably about a half a dozen things that I'd like to show you guys. So anybody that can hang out, I will continue to go through the information, and then also this entire webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to review it later if you do have another pressing engagement to get to today. All right, the next thing that I'd like to show you is there are some regions that the secretary-treasurers in your chapters enter the applications as somebody applies to the chapter. So entering an application is a pretty straightforward process, but there is very important things that you want to keep in mind. Clicking on Manage Memberships, entering an application you do through clicking on Enter New Application. This is the first step of this is that you do always want to make sure that you do a search to see if they were a member in BNI before. The reason that we do this is to pick up all of their old data from their old membership, and it also makes it easier for filling out all their contact information. So you would put the person's name in. I usually choose email address unknown because email addresses change very often. And then click search. Now it'll come up with all the matches. Now there's quite a few John Smiths, but if you recognize the person's company, for example, if this is the one that I was looking for, I could then click the red head next to their name that says convert to member. Now the benefit of this is that all of their information will be there already. I still need to choose their application date. When did they turn in their application? I would choose my region and chapter, who their sponsor is, make sure their profession and specialty is all set, their address information, their email address, and finally their payment option, and whether they are a 1 or a 2-year member. Now, depending on the processes in your region, you will have to go through the membership committee review process and also send that application in for processing at your regional office. Now, to check to see when those have been fully processed by your regional office, you can also go to Manage Memberships and click on View Pending Applications. And this will show you which applications are on file, and I can review them here. All right, so I think I covered all of these things. What I do want to show you is some of the reports as well that you might be interested in as a chapter leadership team person. Now, for reports, we're going to go to, obviously, the reports section. And there are a ton of reports in BNI Connect. I know we had a couple of questions. For example, Kathleen asked before if there's a printed schedule that can be printed out for speakers. And there is. If you come to the reports, you can see a speaker report. You can choose a date range. And let's say that I want to see through November who the speakers are. And click Go. And from here, I can print out the list of upcoming speakers. I could also export it to Excel if I wanted to. But here is the upcoming list of speakers. So hopefully that answers your question there, Kathleen. But there are a number of other reports in here. I'm not going to go through all of the reports, but a couple of the reports that will be most important to you as somebody on the leadership team. And again, you can go through and click on all of these reports. Can't really break anything in reports, so feel free to click through them. But the chapter roster report and the membership dues report. Chapter roster report is good to go through to make sure that the roster is actually correct, both from who was assigned. Here you can check who is assigned to the various roles. So if you're whoever asked before who assigns the mentors in the system, if your mentor coordinator comes to you and says, I can't access that, I can't find it, I can't see it. First thing that I would do is to come to this roster report and see to make sure that that person is actually assigned as a mentor coordinator for your chapter. And if not, contact your director, consultant, or your regional office, and they can help you out with that. This also will show you your current list of members, as well as their contact information, and a quick view of the last 90 days of statistics. Secretary-treasurers and possibly vice presidents, you guys will probably spend quite a bit of time in the membership dues report. Some people refer to this as the MDR, the membership dues report. When I click Go on this report will let me know when everybody is up for renewal. So as a secretary-treasurer and a vice president, I want to be paying attention to this report, especially for the people that are highlighted here in black, in dark black. These are the people that are up for renewal in the near future, both in October and in November. So we want to make sure that I'm processing renewals and having that renewal process started with them. For the other people that are on the list, you can see who's coming up for renewal throughout the year. From a review standpoint, the other thing to keep in mind is that some chapters also do a 6-month review of members, so I can see who's due in 6 months and possibly do a membership review with them. Lori says, what about the people at the top here, this term plus 17, term plus 4, term plus 14? So what that means is that the people that are on the current leadership team, for example, I am the president currently in the chapter for a few more days. When you are on the top 3 on the leadership team, your dues are waived or suspended during the time that you're a member, that you're on the leadership team. So when I became president, I had originally gotten a 2-year membership. That was, I guess, about 7 months into my membership. So when I became president, my dues were paused at 17 months. So when I come out of being president, I'll still have 17 months on my membership. So my clock, so to speak, my membership clock wasn't ticking while I was serving on the leadership. Does that make sense, Lori? Excellent. So the summary POMS report is the next important one. Again, vice presidents, you'll be spending a lot of time with this, but this is really your statistical report for your chapter. By default, it's going to show me the last 6 months, but again, I can change this to any date range I'd like to. And this again will just show me really a summary of all the individual POMS reports that were entered. So I can go through, and this is where you can go and look up the statistics. We can go back and say, oh, in the last 6 months, our chapter generated $1.9 million worth of business in our chapter. Or we've had 2,065 one-to-ones and given 577 outside referrals. So this is a great report to run when you'd like to share some statistics with your chapter. I already showed you the speaker report. When it comes to the secretary-treasurers, the membership committee, the vice presidents, when you're reviewing people's memberships, the summary POMS report might be a little bit overwhelming. So there is what's called the personal POMS report as well. And this allows you to review a single person's membership. So I could go, for example, and look up my own statistics here. If you're reviewing for a 6-month period, or let's say I'd like to look back to the beginning of this year, I can do that, or I can even go back further in time if I want to look back, for 1 year's time period or 2 years' time period. I click Go, and this will break down my activity week to week just for one single member. This is also where you can look for discrepancies. I think somebody brought up also let's say that a person has all of a sudden this really, really, really big number that doesn't seem right. This is where you can pinpoint exactly which week that statistic was put against and figure out which report you would need to go back and correct. This also gives you a summary of their attendance during that time, so you can be monitoring people for the 1, 2, and 3 absences, and also their sponsorships and which training events they've attended. There's also 2 other reports specifically for VPs. You have the VP report, where you can look at a single month on a week-by-week basis. And I probably should have chosen an earlier month that was complete. And here you can see each weekly POMS report along with some totals. You can also do that on a 6-month basis using the cumulative. That would show you month by month. All right, and finally the POMS attendance report is one that you can use. This is actually one of my favorite reports because it helps me to see trends in the chapter. So it'll show me exactly which weeks. This is great as a red flag report as well. You can see if people are missing multiple weeks in a row or if they just have absences over a period of time. All right, so let's see. We are about 45 minutes in. What I'd like to do is to open this up to questions. So there are a ton of questions in here, so I'm going to start going through all the questions. Just in case anybody does need to leave before we are done with all the questions, let me tell you that the place that you'll be able to find the recordings, there's 2 places. I'm going to upload them as quickly as possible as soon as we're done with today's webinar. But if you click on this big question mark in the upper right-hand corner, this will take you to the support site. Once you get to the support site, you'll see the list of webinars, and if you scroll down just a little bit to chapter training and documentation, we have every single piece of BNI Connect documented with walkthrough documents here, walkthrough guides, but also there is recorded webinars. So if you click on recorded webinars for September 2014, you'll see all of the webinars that we've done so far this month up here, and this one will be next in the list as soon as I'm able to get it uploaded. You can also go directly to youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. Again, that's the BNI Connect Global YouTube channel. And you will see the webinar up here as well. It'll be the next one in the list on the September 2014 BNI Connect webinars. There's also a ton of other videos up there as well, educational moments and release announcements and all sorts of things up here on the BNI Connect global YouTube channel. All right, so let me start going through some of these questions. All right, let's see. So that is the presentation going to be available? Let's see. Barbara says, as the mentor coordinator, I've lined up mentors, but was told at training that mentors have an online testing they must go through. When does this happen? So again, that's one of those regionally specific questions that I would talk to your director consultant or your executive director about. So all I can show you here in BNI Connect is how to actually assign the mentors and mentees, but some of the other policies, please do check with your director consultant or your executive director. So Barbara had also asked, is it possible to enter after the fact visitor information? I think we did cover that. So after a meeting has happened, if they did not pre-register for the meeting, you can absolutely add a visitor in by going to Operations, Manage Visitor, Add a Visitor. That's for a visitor that did not pre-register for the meeting. So John had asked who can add visitors, and again, most of the time just a regular member will only be able to register a prospective visitor as opposed to the other activities. All right, let's see. The next question I have here is, let's see, I answered that one. Mark, I think I covered, Mark had a comment to please show the visitor invitation letter, and I think I did show that, unless anybody would like to see that again. Let's see, Sid says, are the president and secretary authorized to add comments to the POMs and make corrections, or is it just the VP? And again, that's going to be one of those, I hate to keep saying this, but it's a local decision who has access to what. The defaults in the system, most regions, it will be that the anybody on the leadership team will be able to access any of these functions. So usually, for example, for entering a POMS report and therefore the ability to enter comments, the president, the vice president, and the secretary-treasurer generally have access to do all of those functions. Sid also asked if a visitor shows up, maybe from looking on BNI or heard about the meeting, but perhaps it's not from anybody in the chapter, who gets credit for the visitor. Sid, in that case, you can credit BNI with the visitor. So when I go to add a visitor here, the person invited by, you'll notice at the bottom of the list, there is BNI as an option. So that could be, let's say they found it on the website or recommended from the regional office or something like that. Barbara says, may visitors who have attended but who are not entered into the POMS report at that time, since dates do not allow to go backwards for this function, may enter them as having attended this week's meeting. Actually, when you are doing the visitors and you go to add a visitor, the adding a visitor will allow you to choose any date in the past. So you can actually go back to, let's say, May, and enter the visitor in, and it will go back to that POMS report for the credit. The thing when you're entering past visitors in is you'll notice down here at the bottom, do you want to send the visitor follow-up email? I would say that if you're entering somebody in much past the week that they attended, that you probably want to not send a thank you for visiting, because it'd just be kind of confusing and a little embarrassing to send it months and months later. So hopefully that answers your question, Barbara. Joseph said, how do you manage referrals given with insufficient info, name and only zeros for phone number, for example? For that, I would say to make sure the members, both giving and receiving them, have a conversation about that particular referral. A lot of times the information might have been passed separately, or it might be somebody that they know, or maybe the information was enough for them that they didn't need that additional information. But definitely that's something that the person giving and receiving the referral should be involved in that conversation. And again, for additional advice on that, definitely talk to your director, consultant, or executive director. Let's see. Sid says, does the email sent automatically get placed in BNI Connect so we confirm what went out? Sid, is that the email for which particular portion? For the mentor or for the visitor invitation? So the visitor invitation, that one, it only gets sent to the person that's being invited. There is not another copy that is sent. It's not sent anywhere else, and it's not logged in the system at all. It's just a one-time outbound email. Kathleen says, can you schedule one-to-ones in the system? Kathleen, at this time, you cannot schedule one-to-ones. You can only record them after you've had the one-to-ones. And Sid says, if I am looking to send an email to a visitor, how can I see what I sent? Again, it's not recorded, so you can't see that email. But if you'd like to see what the email looks like and how it turns out, just send yourself an invitation, and you can see what that email looks like. Tamara says, is there a template for quarterly dues as a reminder? So actually, the system does automatically send out a reminder 90 days before a membership is due. The vice president and the membership committee all get an email with a list of everybody that is due in 90 days. Now, the members that are due also get an email reminding them that they are up for renewal 60 days before their membership. So that's actually handled automatically. Kathleen says, how do you convert to approved or denied pending members? That is actually done at the regional level. So they're the ones that will make the final reconciliation of that new membership. So that's not something that you can do at a chapter level. Let's see. Sid says, I'm secretary for the upcoming BNI year. We collect monthly breakfast dues. Is there a BNI Connect report that I can use to track those dues? BNI Connect does not handle chapter dues in any way. That is all handled locally at each chapter level. So that's something you would have to do separately at this time. So sorry about that, Sid. Let's see. Ian says, where can the VP look at a member's referrals to check their veracity? Ian, I'm not sure what you mean by that specifically. I think, are you looking for the details of those referrals for something like a referral reality check? Is that what you're maybe thinking of? I mean, the only place that you can really do that is to go through the, again, meeting management. You can go to view the POM summary. And if that was a referral that was passed online, you could go in and click on the SLIPS audit report and see that referral. Then you could question either the person that gave it or the person that received it and check on the status of that. Now, if they're passing in the paper slips at the meeting and they print their weekly slips, if you save these slips, because they might be turning those in for the door prize, then this does actually have the referral listed on it as well. So hopefully that answers your question. Ariel says, what's the general rule for late attendance? That's another regional policy question. What I would say is, generally speaking, in my chapter, if the time that the meeting starts, which is the start of open networking, that would be the time that if they show up after that, that we mark them as late in my chapter. But again, please check with your regional team on that one. Let's see, Sally says, can anyone view the POMS report or only the leadership team or certain members? So by default, anybody in the chapter should have access to the summary POMS report. So reports, summary POMS report. In most regions, everybody in your chapter has access to all of these reports. In the operations side of things, in some regions, they'd also be able to click on this view. In most regions, that's all that they would see under this particular list. Christy says, as a member success trainer, what is the best way to introduce our new members to using BNI Connect and helping to get our chapter as a whole using this? I would say please attend one of my webinars. I do have a specific webinar for the online slips. So our next webinar that deals just with the online slips is going to be, let's see, online slips, which is Wednesday, October 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. But every month I go through an entire series of webinars about all of the different things in BNI Connect. So I would say to please attend one of these webinars or go back and view the recordings. You can also do educational moments about certain things. So I showed you the big support site. There's also in front of every single thing. So if you forget what we go over today or you need to just teach a specific topic, for example, if you want more information on how to enter POMS, click the question mark in front of Enter POMS. And this will bring you to a guide on the support site of everything about entering POMS, step by step, what each thing means, showing you exactly how to do it, POMS all written out, how to submit things, what all the buttons mean, et cetera, et cetera. So that's also a great way to introduce different functions, for example, the online slips. If you wanted to do a quick educational moment on how to submit a referral slip online, you could click the question mark in front of submit a referral slip, maybe print this out or show this short 3-minute video at your chapter meeting in a way to introduce that topic to your chapter. So does that help, Christy? Brian says, do webinars count as CEUs? And yes, please. After today, or if you want to, right this minute, go and click on Submit CEU Slip and give yourself a 1 here under the BNI webinar line. Click Submit and make sure that you give yourself a CEU for today. Is there a report that shows the info from referrals passed online to members? As a person involved in the referral process, you personally do have a report that shows all the details. So you can go to your received referrals report and click on this, and this will show you personally all of the details of the referrals that you've received. But that information is private only to you and to the other partner in that referral relationship. Really for confidentiality reasons, it is not shared. There's not some place that you can go as a leadership team person and look at the details of somebody else's referral. Christine says, is there a place to enter in trainings by name, or is that done by the regional trainers? That is done by the regional trainers when you register for certain events online through BNI Connect. After they've marked attendance for that event, it will show up on your profile, but you still do need to input the CEUs. Julie says, a member in our chapter will be away for 8 weeks in the winter, will return and will want to issue a certificate of credit. what needs to be done. That specific process, definitely check with your regional office. Generally speaking, if I have somebody that was going to be leaving the chapter and you need to do a certificate of credit, the way we do that, and I didn't get into that today because not too many regions do this, but again, if this is something you do in your region, I would go back to the operations chapter, manage memberships, and I would go into manage members. This is where we can do a search for our memberships in our chapter. So let's say that this was, the person was Ian, so I could type in the first name Ian, and I have Ian Barlow here, and he's going to be leaving the chapter for a number of months. I need to do a certificate of credit so that he can come back later. I would click on the edit next to his name. Again, if I have access, I can see the details of his membership here. I would then go to the membership details page, and I could drop the member. I choose the date that he's going to be dropping. Let's say that it's today. I can put in the information about how, any details, and whether or not to generate a certificate of credit. Once that certificate of credit has been generated, he is now dropped from the chapter, and when he comes back, I'd be able to use this certificate of credit in order to bring him back to the chapter, and he had 1 month certificate. So I know I went through that really, really quickly, Julie, but does that answer your question? Jay says, what can we do if our work server will not allow for YouTube videos to be viewed? In that case, you're probably going to have to watch them at home. Unfortunately, that's the only place that they're hosted right now. You can still probably go through and view all the walkthrough documents, but you might have to watch the YouTube videos someplace else. So I apologize for that. I know that some companies have policies against that. Let's see, Taresh says, how can secretary-treasurers see past 6-month speakers' actual done report? So you should be able to choose any time range you want in the speakers report. So if I go to the reports and then the speakers, and I go to the speaker report, I can choose any start date. I can go back to 2012 if I want to. And I can go out to 2022 if I actually had speakers assigned there. And it does show me if I can then sort by meeting date. And this goes back to 2012 when we were inputting speakers, and I can review who spoke when if I need to. So it does keep track of that. Unfortunately, we can't backdate speakers into the system if you weren't keeping track of it before. So you would have to start tracking them, and then you'll have data to go from there. So does that answer your question, Taresh? Will the system, Chris says, will the system generate a report showing vacancies in the chapter? Oh yeah, absolutely. So you can do that, again, under Reports chapter. There is one called Classifications Not in Chapter. I click Go, and this will show me all of the classifications that I do not have filled in the chapter, starting with the ones that are most popular in my region. So it shows me right now that I don't have anybody in restoration and cleaning, but there are 7 other chapters in my region that do have this category. Now, keep in mind that there are categories and subcategories and very similar categories. So, quick example, it shows here that we don't have anybody in mortgages, and that's only partially true. We do have somebody that is that does residential mortgages, and they're listed as a residential mortgage broker. So you do have to be a little careful with the list, but it is pretty accurate. And again, it shows you a huge list of about 400 different categories as recognized by BNI Connect. So hopefully that answers your question there, Chris. All right, let's see. Sid says, I think if I or any member invites a prospective visitor, a copy of that invitation should be available for us to see or confirm. I agree with you, Sid. I think that would be some great functionality. By the way, if you have any suggestions for BNI Connect, head over to the support site. Again, click that question mark and head to the support site. And if you scroll past the chapter training and documentation and you go down to the public forums, there is a suggestions and enhancement requests. And in here, you can submit suggestions. And I believe that this one has been suggested. If you want to do a search for it or if you want to find it, you can make suggestions. You can make comments on other people's suggestions that are up here and kind of give some feedback to the programmers as to what to possibly include in future releases. So hopefully that helps, Sid. Ariel asks about CEUs, how many credits can we assign for this webinar and or the online training we need to take? Again, check with your regional office when it comes to the CEUs and what to assign for which. I can tell you my general rule of thumb that most people adhere to is that when I'm submitting a CEU slip, you'll notice that the credits are approximately how many hours you spent on a specific activity. So, for example, most of the CDs are about an hour. It takes about an hour to read through the newsletter, so that's 1 credit. You know, the podcasts are about 12 minutes a piece, and 5 podcasts would be about an hour, so that's 1. It takes about 5 hours to read a book, so that's why it's 5 credits. So again, you can use that as a rule of thumb, but you can also check with your regional office, your executive director, director consultant for some additional ideas on that. Kathleen said, can these webinars be used as an educational moment? I'm sure they can be, but they'd be awfully long. That would be a very long educational moment. However, I do have some prepared BNI Connect educational moments if you'd like to use them. Again, go back to the support site. Click on the question mark in the upper right-hand corner. And again, if you scroll down to this public forums section, you'll see BNI Connect educational moments. And there's about a dozen educational moments here. So if I, for example, pass a referral online, you want to get people involved in the online slips in your chapter, there's a video. There's also a document. So if I click on this document or PDF file, I can download an actual document that gives you some specific information, links to the video, a link to the walkthrough guide, presentation ideas and what to say, and some other suggestions for how to get involved with that particular topic. So there is some stuff that is pre-written out for you, although, again, I think the webinars might be a little long as an educational moment. Melanie says, is the received referrals report only for online submitted referrals? Yes, the received referrals report is only for referrals that you have received online. When they're paper referrals, only the statistic is recorded, not all the details. So the received referrals report is for only referrals that you have received online in BNI Connect. Barbara says, one final question on visitors. Is it enough to enter the number of visitors in the PALMS report to affect the traffic signals, or should the visitors be entered in add a visitor? So my recommendation is to always add them in using the add a visitor. And the reason for that is that you are then creating a visitor database so that you can follow up with visitors afterwards. For example, I can then pull a report on all my past visitors. If I go to the chapter reports, and I go to the chapter visitor report. Let's say that my chapter is having a visitors day. Wouldn't it be a good idea to re-invite some people that might have come to the chapter before to the visitors day? Well, you can do that, or let's say that you're having an after-hours event. You'd like to invite all your previous visitors to this after-hours networking event. So I can go in and I can let's say I want to invite everybody that's come and visited my chapter so far this year, and I wanted to invite them all to this event, I could then do that. I could export this report, get their email addresses, I could add them to send out cards, I could just get their individual phone numbers and follow up with them if I wanted to as well. So again, my recommendation is you want to be keeping a visitors database for your chapter because there's many, many more benefits to that than just the statistic in the PALMS report. Laura says, are there pre-written invite letters that you can use? There is, depending on your region. So going back to my home screen, in BNI Connect, there is a place where you can find documents that your region has shared. Now, these can be the membership committee control letters. They might be a conference call schedule. It might be the pre-written invitations for a visitor's day, a whole bunch of stuff. The place to find that is to click on My Network and click on the Documents tile here. This will show you all of your regional documents. So I can click on More, and I can see all of the documents that my region has uploaded. I can view 100 at a time if I want to. I can sort them. I can even search. So let's say I'm looking for the control letters. I can just type control in this little search box up here. And here is the document that has all the control letters. I can then download it. And I can use this for that. So hopefully that helps. And if they had pre-written invitation letters, that would be up there as well. Dawn says, is there a way to add referrals that we received on paper so that you can have a record of it? And as a matter of fact, there is. Thank you for asking, Dawn. So let's say that somebody passed you a paper referral, but you'd still like to track that information in BNI Connect. You can do that. So if you can go to your Track Your Referrals Received. And this is a tracking sheet that allows you to track any referrals that you've received online. So let me go back a little ways here. So I can go in and I can actually change the status of the referrals, fill out any additional information, change the temperature, etc. But let's say that I had a paper one and I'd still like to track that information. I could click on Add New. Now this does not impact the PALMS report in any way. This is just if I would like to track a separate referral, I can do that. I can just put the information in. Status, put in, when I met with them, all this other information, and click Submit. And now I could track this particular referral myself, even though it was passed on paper, or maybe it even came from a different system. So hopefully that answers your question there, Dawn. And here it is now in my received referrals report. All right, let's see. Wellington Alves had a question. How is the chapter traffic lights calculated? That one is a very complex question that I don't think I have time to go into today. However, if you do go to the support site, and again, go to Reports Chapter, and go to the chapter traffic lights. Click the question mark, and in here it actually shows you the calculation for how traffic lights are calculated. So that should give you a quick overview of that. If you do have specific questions, you are welcome to send in a support request, and we will be happy to answer that. Sid says, where do I go to get the BNI launch info page? You should be able to just click the home button here and click on My BNI Business. Is this what you're referring to here, Sid? So one thing to keep in mind, Sid, I'm not sure if you're Okay, so you're talking about when you become a member, the member launch. So that one, again, that one would be if your region has uploaded it, go to My Network and check the documents up here. If it's not there, then you will have to contact your regional office to get that particular form. All right, believe it or not, that's the last question that I had. I think we hit every single question. Does anybody have any additional questions on anything about BNI Connect? I would be happy to answer those questions. If there are no questions, no additional questions, or while you're thinking of them, again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I know this went much, much longer than a half hour. It went about an hour and 15 minutes. The recording, I will make this recording available as quickly as possible up on the YouTube channel for people to review. We do have a whole host of webinars coming up. Check the support site, check your regional calendars. Reminder, it will be up on YouTube. And also, big favor to ask you all, go to facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. I would love it if you gave us a like. We do webinar announcements and reminders and all sorts of stuff up here as well. So please do come and join us on Facebook. And a good referral for me, if you found today's webinar helpful, a good referral for me is to please, please, please recommend these to your other chapter members. Again, our very next webinar is going to be tomorrow, as a matter of fact, for chapter webmasters, how to maintain your chapter website, and also a full series of them coming up in October. So please register for and recommend these webinars to your fellow chapter members. Let's see, Benson says, will you be at International Conference? I absolutely 100% will be, and I would love to meet you in person at conference. So I will see you there. All right. Any other questions? Excellent. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of the week, everyone, and happy connecting.